The Toronto Raptors are back, and they just got a massive win against the Minnesota Timberwolves in Game 1 of the NBA season. And after all of the offseason, after all the concerns a lot of Raptors fans had about this team coming into the year, the team went undefeated in preseason and continued that momentum, continued looking great against Minnesota here tonight. And I'm just absolutely amped because, firstly, we got Raptors basketball back. Just watching this team, I'm feeling rejuvenated. I'm feeling great. Last year, especially for the last couple months of the season, the vibes were down. The excitement was low. There wasn't a lot of anticipation. Even though we were pushing for the play-in, even though there was inklings of hope, my energy just feels revitalized. I'm just feeling at a whole different level right now with this team that we currently have. And there's a lot of different bright spots that we're going to have to talk about in this game. And no, it was not perfect. The Raptors end up getting the 97-94 victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves. There wasn't, a perfection of basketball. There was a couple of moments here, a couple things in this game that we'll talk about. But overall, even though the roster doesn't look a whole lot different, obviously replacing Dennis Schroder with Fred VanVleet has certainly changed the style, the aesthetic of the basketball the Toronto Raptors have played in this game, at least, and over the course of preseason. But overall, the roster talent level and, players we have in, it's very similar to what we had at the end of last season. But my goodness, the whole pace, the flow throughout the game, and just the energy the players are bringing out there on the court, it's on a whole nother level. And the first guy that we have to talk about is Dennis Schroder, because he's the main piece that we switched Fred VanVleet, who ended up signing a $40+ million contract with the Houston Rockets. Switching him into the Toronto Raptors system seems to really have just picked up the pace of this team. There were concerns about the Raptors' three-point shooting when, Fred VanVleet's gone. You replace him with Dennis Schroder, who isn't naturally the greatest three-point shooter, at least in terms of percentages in the past. But what he was able to do for this Raptors offense, especially, and defense tonight, was on a whole nother level. Looking at the box score in this one, Dennis Schroder, 8 for 17 from the field, so just under 50% from the field, not crazy efficient, but hit 4 threes in this game and 22 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, and only 2 turnovers as well, which is nice to see. 1 late, which is a little bit sketchy, but Schroder, he is just picking up the pace. And that's something, especially when you have guys like Pascal Siakam, that has thrived throughout his career, running the basketball, pushing the pace, catching those long passes from Kyle Lowry, having a point guard like Dennis Schroder, who is willing to make that pass, willing to sort of make, I don't want to call it a risky pass, but a thread the needle pass to sort of put people in their position to cut. That's a great thing to see. And 2, just really pick up the energy of this team for guys like Scotty, guys like Pascal to push the pace. This is the first Raptors game I've seen in a while where it's really looked like a track meet. And it's really been kind of refreshing because it's a lot more exciting style of basketball than what we saw last season from the sort of Fred VanVleet. Slow it down, set the offense, dribble show. And frankly, we did need a little bit of that last season, but I like the style of facilitating that Dennis Schroder provided for this game. Now, it might be a little bit surprising to see that 17 shots, most on the team tied with Pascal Siakam, went to Dennis Schroder, but frankly, he managed the offense well. He was pretty efficient out there from the field, played great defense at the point of attack, and was just a guy that I felt comfortable out there running the Toronto Raptors offense. We did see a little bit of points, Scotty. We saw Malachi Flynn come off the bench, and we'll discuss him as this video goes along, but man, Schroder, give this man his props. We were hyped with the performance he provided for Team Germany during the FIBA World Cup, and now bring it to the Toronto Raptors, not skipping a beat, only looking better than what he was providing for Germany there, looking like a complete steal for the Toronto Raptors, especially considering, we have people in the comment section saying he's already better than Fred VanVleet or he's a better player in general, and regardless of where you stand on that, we're not going to overreact to just one game of the season, even though I'm pretty amped up right now. I'm energetic, I'm feeling good, but man, Dennis Schroder for what, $16 million per season versus Fred VanVleet's $40 million per year. Masai Ujiri's looking like he made a very good decision along those lines. But it wasn't just the new guys, Dennis Schroder, or at least the new guy in Dennis Schroder who performed well. OG Anunoby in this one felt 20 points, 6 rebounds. They kind of felt quiet. Hit 4 threes in this game, just watching it. Obviously did Anthony Edwards was on another level out there. The shots he was hitting, the tough shots that he was knocking down. But OG Anunoby had his hand up, protected the paint, did his thing out there. Protecting just on the defensive end, and then also, again, didn't force the issue at all. Remarkably efficient, 7 to 13 from the field, right? OG just quietly did his thing, showing why Masai Ujiri has made him untradeable in Damian Lillard trade talks and KD trade talks years ago or whoever the heck. And frankly, if we're getting 20 points per game from OG Anunoby this season and elite defensive production, that's going to be a huge, huge addition for the Toronto Raptors in this one. Again, spent most of the night on Anthony Edwards and did a really good job, in my opinion, even though Edwards himself, what did he have in this game? 26 points, but again, 8 of 27 from the field. Hit some tough, difficult shots. 14 rebounds for Anthony Edwards, too. That man is an absolute beast. But shout out to OG Anunoby. You see the shooting percentage there for Anthony Edwards. A lot of credit goes to OG there on the defensive end. And Scotty Barnes, he had the post-game interview in this one, but 37 minutes for Scotty. No one had too many minutes in this game, which is really interesting to see. We'll discuss rotations as this video goes along, but 17 points for Scotty Barnes, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 5 blocked shots. Scotty Barnes out here looking like the Stifle Tower who was supposed to be the defensive player of the year on the other team. He was out there, Gobert had a couple questionable kind of goaltending calls, it felt like, and they weren't called. And then Scotty would come back and say, refs, you missed that one, so I'm going to send one into the crowd. I'm going to send one in the stands. The Toronto Raptors, who needs a center? Even though we have centers now at this point. We got Scotty Barnes blocking shots left, right, and center. But again, missed a couple shots. I fell into a couple habits I saw from last season where he is still pretty trigger happy from behind the three-point line. Shot 4 threes in this one, a couple of them very early. 1 of 4 from behind the three-point line. But overall, 6 of 16 from the field. Not the greatest shooting night, but we don't need Scotty Barnes to be perfect in terms of scoring because he does everything else, right? Scotty Barnes is facilitating. Him and Dennis Schroder pushing the pace for this team is just something to see. And sometimes Scotty Barnes can get a little bit out of control when he's going a bit too fast. But in this game, it seemed like, and throughout preseason, he's playing fast but not out of control. Again, that's a big sort of proverb in basketball. You want to be able to play fast but not rush. And I feel like Scotty Barnes, even though the numbers weren't tremendous, especially from efficiency and stuff like that tonight, looked a lot more under control than he did for large moments of last season. So huge stuff there for the Scotty Barnes. And one guy that we haven't really talked about who, yes, wasn't that efficient from the field tonight, but hit some timely threes. Pascal Siakam, 15 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds, 1 steal. But again, yes, he did take 17 shots, but not a lot of it felt forced. And I really like the style the Toronto Raptors sort of played in this game, in terms of what they were able to do, the style of basketball that they were running, because it doesn't make sense to just run, pass, swing the balls when you have Pascal Siakam who can execute, who can sort of facilitate and create his own shots against, weaker matchups. And I like that we did still go to Pascal Siakam. It wasn't just completely revert away from, mismatch hunting when you have those opportunities, but the ball looked fluid and didn't seem like anything was really forced from Pascal in this game, but he still did get his touches. Him and Dennis Schroder were sort of the 1-2 options, throughout this game. So really good stuff there from Pascal Siakam and Jakob Poeltl. That's one thing that I found a little bit interesting in the starting lineup. Poeltl didn't get a lot of touches in this game, got a lot of boards, and that's always refreshing for the Toronto Raptors, given the fact that, hey, we spent so many seasons without a true center, getting bullied on the glass. So Poeltl's doing his thing out there, playing great defense against guys like coming into the lane, like Edwards, like Conley. It's always just a presence out there on the defensive end. Again, probably could hit him a couple more times on that pick and roll. There was a few times we did try to force it in. Didn't really work out. That could be some of the coverages the Minnesota Timberwolves were running. But starting lineup tonight for the Toronto Raptors was awesome. And then the real questions about this team is who's going to be coming off the bench and producing. And I thought McDaniels, even though he went 0 for 3 from the field, brought a lot of great energy to this game. Missed a couple, misses all of his threes. But I just like McDaniels' game. I've said it all preseason. But, Malachi Flynn struggled again in this one, hit 1 3, which was nice, but defensively is just a little bit of a liability out there still at this point, which is the unfortunate truth about Malachi Flynn, because he can facilitate, he can occasionally shoot, but he's not, Isaiah Thomas levels of offensive production, prime Isaiah Thomas, Boston Celtics Isaiah Thomas, not obviously Detroit Pistons, but, smaller guard, even, heck, a Fred VanVleet, a good Fred VanVleet. He's not providing that sort of offensive production that makes up for his lack of defense, his lack of ability to sort of switch and rotate on these Toronto Raptors schemes. And even a couple times, because forget, the occasional times he's outmatched, outsized, outclassed in terms of physically on the defensive end. But there was a couple times where you could clearly see it was his closeout. It was his sort of drop to cover some 3-point shooters. And then he just didn't really execute on those plays. And those, frankly, are the things that are going to lose you minutes in Malachi Flynn, because if you're doing everything right, the coach will appreciate it, even if you get mismatch hunted every now and then. But if you're missing rotations on top of not hitting your shots, not scoring, not producing, I mean, that's a little bit of a tough look there for Malachi. Came into the game, and then I think the Raptors are up by 10 at one point, and then it was tied by the time he came out. So it's a rough game for Malachi, but I think Darko's going to give him a little bit of a longer leash. As we talked about during preseason, we didn't go with Doughton. We didn't go with that Delano Banton coming in this year. So don't expect them to turn on Flynn the same way Nick Nurse did pretty early on. But again, there's only so much leash you can give a guy after he has failed to seize the opportunities time after time. But he has had moments in his career, so I don't want to give up on Malachi Flynn after one game of the season. Gary, 2 of 8 from the field. Again, off the bench, there are concerns about Gary's consistency. Didn't force the issue whatsoever. Knocked down 1 3, a couple of assists. I thought he hustled, played well on defense. The entire Toronto Raptors team just seemed energized, seemed ready to go, seemed locked in on the defensive end, which is huge for this squad. So that's a huge plus. That's something I like to see. And Gary getting back to that, even though it wasn't the greatest offensive night, him getting back to that production, that dog on the point of attack on defense, getting deflections, getting steals. That will be a huge plus for the Toronto Raptors team. But folks, I was talking about it a little bit during preseason. The propaganda is getting drummed back up. That's right, Precious Achiuwa, better than Bam, the next Giannis Antetokounmpo. Precious Achiuwa is back, and my goodness, he's looking healthy. He had about 4 dunks in his first 4 buckets of the season of this game, and 8 points, 4 of 9 from the field, 9 rebounds, played some crunch time minutes for this Toronto Raptors team over Jakob Poeltl. Had a couple turnovers, which were a little bit sus. Didn't miss his 3 out there. Had a couple just, Precious Achiuwa-ish moments. But I just love what Precious Achiuwa is able to provide when he's locked in, when he's ready to go. Caught some insane lobs. Had some highlight plays in this one. I don't know. I get that there's highs and lows, even over the course of a game with a guy like Precious Achiuwa. But man, gotta give this man some height. He's looking like the Precious Achiuwa we were hoping he would develop into last season. Just, being a little bit more under control, scoring in the lane, rolling to the basket. And Darko trusted him down the stretch in this game because also defensively, he did a great job because he has that size, that strength, but is extremely mobile. So when you have a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns that can space the floor, one of the best big men shooters of all time, but can also drive the lanes and stuff, and you have a guy like Precious Achiuwa that's mobile enough to sort of stay in front when he makes those drives and contest those threes, that's huge. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns also in this game didn't have the greatest of performances. I mean, 8 of 25 from the field, again, 19 points, 10 rebounds. So the Raptors' defense is this one was the thing to get really excited about. So that's a huge plus for this Raptors team. But I'm just pumped to see what this Raptors squad was able to bring to the table for game 1 of this season. Timberwolves gave their punches. Raptors did a good job at locking them down on defense. 3-point shooting was also pretty solid for the Toronto Raptors, 44% from the 3-point line for this entire game. So that's a huge concern that the Raptors had coming into this year. So it's nice that the 3-point shooting ended up going down. But the final thing I do want to discuss is Chris Boucher and Otto Porter Jr. and Thaddeus Young, I guess, not getting any run, and basically Grady Dick not getting any run. And Darko talked about, how he likes to run 10-man deep. Basically ran a 9-man rotation tonight, and 10 if you include Grady's 2 minutes in this one. Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing Otto Porter Jr. get some opportunity. And Chris Boucher. I mean, Chris Boucher is a guy making $11 million per year, has shown that he's a valuable asset, a valuable piece coming off the bench for this Raptors team. I mean, when Precious is playing this level, it's tough to get those minutes when you also have Poeltl up there. You see Siakam out there in the front line. But I'd like to see definitely Boucher be in the rotation and Otto Porter Jr. get some run. If that means a guy like Malachi Flynn gets knocked out of the rotation for a little bit, some minutes get dialed back for some people, it is what it is. But throughout this game, I mean, aside from Scotty Barnes, no one had a ridiculous amount of minutes. We didn't see any Nick Nurse sort of real heavy load on any of these types of guys. And Darko's talked about the rotations shifting over the course of the year. We'll see what ends up happening. But that's my one thing to keep an eye out, keep a lookout for these Raptors teams, how the rotations will pan out over the next couple weeks or so as we ease into the season. But let me know what you guys think about this game. Didn't go live after this one. Got a couple things happening, making sure all the channels are going well for this. So can't be live here for a couple hours, but lives will be happening. Marcel's did a great job covering the full live watch along. Hope everyone tuned into that. But folks, you guys are the best to make this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Giveaway should be announced from rentals.ca as well for the custom jerseys. So stay tuned for that. Keep an eye out in your Instagram DMs. But you guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.